91.3 WVKR, independent radio, Poughkeepsie, New York. You are tuned into LocalMotion. I am your host, Rita Ryan, here each and every Wednesday from 4 to 6 p.m. Show number 254 for me today on these airwaves. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, whether it's on the dial at 91.3 or online, WVKR.org, or TuneIn Radio. However it is you're here, it is much appreciated. If this is your first time tuning into the show, this show is all about music of the Hudson Valley area of New York. And today I am so thrilled to have coming back to the show one of my absolute fave musicians, Ms. Gail and Dorsey, will be joining me in a few minutes on the show. We've got lots to talk about with Gail. I'll tell you all about her if you're not already familiar with her. But first, I want to play some music that was sent to me a few weeks ago by Pete Levin. And this is an unreleased track that has not, it's been on the airwaves once here, but it's a compilation between Tony Levin, Pete Levin, and Gail Ann Dorsey on vocals. She does quite a beautiful job here. So we're going to start off by listening to this yet unreleased song. And it is a Peter Gabriel composition. Let's take a listen to it right here, right now, on 91.3 WVKR, independent radio, Poughkeepsie.
Did you think that your feet had been bound by what gravity brings to the ground? Did you feel you were tricked by the future you picked? Well, come on down. All these rules don't apply when you're high in the sky, so come on down, come on down. We're coming down to the ground. There's no better place to go. We've got snow upon the mountains, we've got rivers down below. We're coming down to the ground to hear the birds sing in the trees, and the land will be looked after. We send the seeds out in the breeze. Did you think you'd escaped from routine by changing the script and the scene? Despite all you made of it, you're always afraid of a change. You've got a lot on your chest. Well, you can come as my guest, so come on down, come on down. We're coming down to the ground. There's no better place to go. We've got snow upon the mountains, we've got rivers down below. We're coming down to the ground. We'll hear the birds sing in the trees, and the land will be looked after. We send the seeds out in the breeze. Like the fish in the ocean, felt at home in the sea. We learned to live off the good land. We learned to climb up a tree, and we got up on two legs, but we wanted to fly. When we messed up our homeland and set sail for the sky, we're coming down to the ground. There's no better place to go. We've got snow on the mountains, we've got rivers down below. We're coming down to the ground. We'll hear the birds sing in the trees. The land will be looked after. We send the seeds out in the breeze. We're coming down to the ground. Coming down to earth. We've got snow up on the mountains. We've got rivers down below. We're coming down to the ground. We'll hear the birds sing in the trees, and the land will be looked after. We send the seeds out in the breeze. We're coming down, down to earth. We're coming down.
91.3 WVKR, independent radio, Poughkeepsie, New York, a compilation of Tony Levin, Pete Levin, and Ms. Gail Ann Dorsey, who I have on the phone. Gail?
Hello.
Hello. Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for being here today. And we just heard a beautiful song that you're a huge part of, your vocals. And I want to talk about that. But first, I'd like to do a brief introduction, if I may.
Oh, please do. Thanks.
Best known for spending nearly 2 decades in David Bowie's band, bassist, vocalist, and songwriter Gail Ann Dorsey has worked with a wide variety of other artists, including currently being in Lenny Kravitz's band. Also worked with Tears for Fears, Gwen Stefani, Gang of Four, Brian Ferry, Boy George, the Indigo Girls, just to name a few. She's recently collaborated with The National and Donnie McCaslin. She's also part of the upcoming live stream online event, A Bowie Celebration, which will take place on January 8th. We are so fortunate to have Gail living as our neighbor here in the Hudson Valley. And Gail also recently celebrated a birthday, and I'd like to wish her a very happy belated birthday. An honor to have you back on the show. Welcome again to LocalMotion.
Thank you.
Ms.
Thank you, Rita. It's nice to speak to you again as well. And it's always nice to be on the radio. You know, I'm a big radio fan.
You are. I know. You've always said that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I love it. To me, it's still magic. It's like as a kid, I lived. My mother was always had the radio on, and I think that was part of my early education with AM radio music in the 70s and late 60s, and I just have that. I've adopted that passion for listening to music on the radio. So, like as a girl, a young girl, to hear myself singing on the radio was like a dream. So, even though I've been on the radio many times now over the years, over the decades, it's still like special.
It's still a little bit of
magic.
magic.
I still get a little chill. Yeah, it's magic. I'm like, so thank you. I appreciate that you play it, and I appreciate all DJs. They're the best.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm so old school, I don't even do like the downloads or anything. That's how old school I am.
I don't blame you. Old school is the good school to me. I'm very old school as well, and I try, and I like to kind of go with the changes, and I don't want to resist anything, and I don't want to judge anything. But I have to say that old school is the way to go.
Well, there's nothing like seeing a physical piece of vinyl or a CD where you get to see like who's on the plays, the minute list, everything, where it was recorded, and just the whole excitement.
Right. That's part of the experience.
Yeah.
That you even care about the details of what, the music moves you enough. You want to know a little bit about where it's come, who made it, and how it comes together. And artwork was such a wonderful part of that. You know, there are a lot of graphic artists and illustrators, and some artists themselves, like Bowie, Joni Mitchell. They painted their own album covers. They designed their own artwork. So that was a big part of it. It's part of the package. You get a visual and the sound. But
absolutely.
Now it's all on the screen.
Yeah.
You know, it makes me think of the song you just played that they chose, that Peter and Pete Levin and Tony Levin chose and asked me to sing. It's a song that Peter Gabriel performed for the film Wall-E. Do you remember that film?
Yes, I do. My daughter was very young, but I do remember seeing that. It was a Pixar film.
A Pixar film about how people kind of have destroyed the Earth, and then they go live up in space, and they get lazy, and they go around on scooters, and they kind of lose their feet and hands because they don't kind of need them, because they just do everything on the screen. It's quite funny that song to me, and the film, like thinking back on the story of that film, is like it's a little bit scary about like where it seems like where we're headed.
Yeah, it does. It sounds very familiar to these days.
I know. I was kind of like, wow, somebody was onto something. I actually would like to see that film again, but it's a wonderful song. It's a great song, of course. Well,
it's beautiful, beautiful song. And, you know, Tony, of course, you know, a fellow bassist, you are, your neighbor over there. And
that's right.
You know, how lucky are we to be blessed here in the Hudson Valley with the music and the musicians that live here. It's really quite remarkable.
Incredibly blessed. It's just, I couldn't think of a better place to be in the U.S., really, to be around not only musicians. There are artists in this community. There are actors, filmmakers, writers. It's a good spot. We're lucky.
We are lucky. And the beauty in the scenery itself is just breathtaking. So
and I feel like we all work hard to keep it that way too. You know,
yes.
Keep the land from being spoiled. And
we definitely need to do that. So I thank you again to Pete Levin, who says, don't you share that with anyone, but it's okay for me to play it on air. So I got his permission.
There you go.
So that was wonderful. And then we'll play some more music later on during the show. But let's go back in time. I always like to do this a little bit. I know you've been on before, and most of your fans are very familiar with you, but perhaps there's people listening that might just be hearing you for the first time. And I always like to go back a little bit in time, saying, this is your life. Tell me, you're from Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Youngest of five.
Youngest of five, 3 boys, 2 girls. And kind of grew up, someone asked me this question yesterday, actually, about a musical family. I mean, there definitely were musical aspirations from my middle brother, who actually still plays. He's I guess he's just turned 70 this year. And he is still, interested in music and still has guitars and plays. But it was more a musical family in that we loved music. Like, the radio was on, and there were a lot of albums coming in. And speaking of albums and vinyl, we just, there was just, between all my siblings who were much older than me, there was a lot of music being played. And so I was exposed to a lot of music. But I just, I don't know. I think from a young age, I always knew I wanted to sing. I knew I wanted to play guitar. I heard Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton and Mark Farner from Grand Funk, and just all this incredible sound. But wow, guitar! It's just like, I just felt like the way that instrument spoke. And you have an incredible guitarist that you're going to be speaking to as well, which is Larry Campbell.
Oh, yeah.
My goodness. Who's also one of our Hudson Valley artists. But it just inspired me, and I just thought, this is something that I want to do. I have to be able to learn how to play. So I taught myself to play, and got a guitar when I was 9, and I mean, it's
and what
been
were
a
you
long
listening
journey,
to?
But the rest
what were
well,
you?
At that,
when you were picking up the guitar, and you're self-taught, right?
I'm self-taught. Yeah, we couldn't afford lessons. I mean, we used to have music in school, so I learned it. I actually took clarinet in school. I didn't study guitar.
Oh my gosh. All right, so live radio, and Gail's going to call me back. I accidentally hung up on her. Oh dear. Okay, there you go. She'll be right back. She'll call us right back. And sorry about that, listeners. Thank you for understanding. This is live radio. I'm going to just play a little bit more of that. Oh, there she is already. Hi, Gail. Sorry about that. Hold on, please. Okay, are you there?
I am here. Yeah, I lost connection, but I've also got like a strange.
Yes, we're here. We're together.
Okay, sorry about that.
I'm sorry about that as well. So go ahead. You were talking about the self-taught.
But, self-taught. Didn't have any. We didn't have the means to have private lessons for guitar, and so I learned by ear, and I still play by ear. I don't really know how to read music very well. I've learned things they've just kind of come to me as I've learned from other musicians and just experiences of playing, but I'm not really a schooled, musician in terms of writing out music or reading music. But I always had a good ear. I could hear it. If I could kind of sing it in my head, I could figure out how to play it. I could find the patterns on the actual neck of the guitar, and it pretty much is how it works with things, is learning patterns anyway, even when you do know how to read music. So
there's a pattern in that as well,
of
course.
Absolutely.
Yep. And what about bass? That came after the guitar. You picking up the bass, yeah?
Yes, bass I picked up bass because I needed to work, and in the 70s, I wanted to work, and like I was a teenager, and I wanted to do something out in the school break, summer break. I didn't want to go and work at McDonald's or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I thought, if I'm kind of getting good on guitar, maybe someone would hire me in a band that actually made money. So I went looking for jobs on the bulletin board of the music store, which is how you found things. You didn't have internet then. You didn't have LinkedIn or any of that stuff. So we went and looked on the board, and I went to an audition for bass because everybody on the bulletin board was a guitar player. I'd say 90% of the advertisements said guitarist looking for drummer, guitarist looking for bass player. Most people were looking for a bass player. It seemed like nobody wanted to play the bass. I don't know why. I guess it didn't. Now I think it's a much more glamorous instrument than it used to be.
Yeah.
Everybody's playing bass now, men, women, you name it, and playing it very well, and innovating on it as well. But at the time, the bass was kind of like this thing that people thought was in the background, wasn't so important. And so I just thought, well, it can't be that hard. I'm going to go on an audition for a bass, and then it's only that's what I did. I borrowed a bass. I went to an audition. I got the job. My mother bought me a bass, and that was that.
And that was that.
I was 14.
Wow.
I kind of, did other things in my life. Like around college time, I went to film school because I thought I might want to get into that. But it was very short-lived because music was in my blood. It was what I was meant to do, and there was no question. So once I just came to terms with that, I just excelled and moved forward with music being the most important thing to me, which it still is.
Yeah. Lucky for us that it is. And then after attending a few semesters at California, you moved across the pond, yeah?
Yes, I came to New York for a little while, New York City, and tried to get demos done and kind of get things off the ground in the early 80s, but it just nothing was, materializing. I was working in a record store. And then I had an opportunity. I had an English friend, and he was going back to London. And I said, would you mind if I came with you? I had nothing to lose, and I went and kind of stayed with his family for a while, and took my music over there and started to meet people. And it seemed like it was almost instantaneous there. There was so much more happening in London at that time. I feel like a lot of my success, or just my ability to progress and have a career, was because I landed there at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just luck.
Yeah.
It was a thriving music scene that was a lot of it subsidized. A lot of the early work I had in London was subsidized by the government. Can you imagine?
Really? Wow. No, I can't.
A lot of people, exactly. They had grants. You could get a grant to do some kind of music project, and that could afford some people had bands of 20 people or something they could actually put on a payroll because they had money from the government to subsidize concerts. And then there were pubs, in England. I'm sure you've probably been to England, and if anyone
Yes.
has even seen a film about
Yes.
England, you got to know that there's pubs pretty much on every corner,
Yeah.
almost like there's a drugstore on every corner.
In the
America.
U.S., right? We have a CVS, they have pubs.
We have CVS, they have pubs, and pubs had music. When I arrived there, every pub had a little stage, or almost most of them did, and that's where I kind of cut my teeth. I got invited to be with parts of little trios and bands, and we'd play pubs on a weekend. And before I knew it, I could actually make enough money to kind of survive with music, which was the first time that could happen. So,
And was it true that your first professional recording session was with Boy George?
It was. He did it was his first album he did. I think it was called Sold, the album. I was actually looking it up the other day and seeing if it was on Spotify or somewhere. I didn't end up I did like 3 songs or something, but they didn't make it on the album, which is, I think maybe at the time I might have been devastated, but now I know that's just normal because people record a lot of stuff and you never know what's going to make it and what's going to, and it's not your fault either. It's just they decide they don't want that song, or the record label decides, or whatever. So, but it was, at least I had the experience. It was my first time in a major recording studio, and George was awesome and is still a friend to this day. He's a cool guy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Very cool guy.
That's nice to stay in touch for all those years. That's great.
Yeah.
And, Charlie Watts, big band. Tell us about that.
That was another thing that happened, kind of around the same time. I was working with actually the drummer who got me the Boy George gig. He was a young drummer named Richie Stevens, who is still a drummer in the UK now, still working as far as I know. Great drummer, great soul drummer, real funk, R&B soul drummer. And his father was a famous jazz drummer. And it was actually through his father, who was friends with Charlie Watts because they were around the same age, Charlie Watts, I never knew until that time, was a huge jazz aficionado. I mean, the guy was crazy about jazz. If he wasn't in the Rolling Stones, he would have been like, Buddy Rich, or, he would have been Charlie Watts, but he would have been some kind of jazz drummer. He would have preferred to go that route, but he ended up in the Rolling Stones. Didn't do too bad.
No, I was going to say didn't do too bad.
Yeah, and he's a phenomenal drummer and also a really nice person. I have nothing but fond memories of time spent with him. But he, it's hard to follow the story. The son who introduced me to Boy George, his father was asked by Charlie Watts to put together a big band, and I was working with John Stevens, the father, on another government subsidized project. Actually, that's how I met John. I applied for a job, kind of going around to community centers and kind of introducing music to community centers in a different way, not like teaching lessons, but kind of teaching rhythm and bringing instruments and just kind of getting the more, kind of the communities that were, needed more things for the young people to do to kind of, keep them occupied and maybe get them hooked on music or something like that. So it was like, that was kind of a program like that I worked in. And then through John Stevens, I met Richie, the son, who was working with Boy George, who was already my age. So he said, I have a son you might want to meet, because he's got a band and he does these records. And I was like, wow, somebody who makes records. I hadn't met a musician like that yet who was savvy in the recording studio. That was my dream, to get to that 24-track recording studio. So John introduced me to his son, and Richie was like, yeah, come play bass, and some projects that he did. So that's how that started.
That's great. Wow. And then you made it from the pub to the TV.
I made it from the pub to the TV. Yeah, I met some people. I got kind of a manager and had some people who, kind of friend of a friend who's got a little studio, and we can make a video and do little, it was all very guerrilla, kind of pull it together, which is what you do. I mean, well, now you go on The Voice or something.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you've heard about our Hudson Valley guy, right? Ian?
I did.
Yeah.
I have to say, I saw him, and he sounded incredible.
Oh, what a voice.
He was and I just discovered him a few weeks ago, because I don't really watch those shows, I have to be honest. It was by accident that I I saw him there. I think it might have been something related to something I read about him being from the Hudson Valley, and I went, oh. So then I went online and watched a little bit of The Voice because I was out of the country for a while, so I could stream it. But he was amazing.
Yeah.
Very good. Did he win? I don't know.
He's in the finale. He's from Saugerties. He's been on this show 3 times.
Oh, Saugerties.
He's from Saugerties.
Yeah,
and he's in the finale on Monday night. He's one of 5 people in the finale on Team Blake, Blake Shelton's team.
He's good.
Yeah.
I mean, and not to say some good people don't come out of those shows, but it's kind of a weird way to get started.
Yes.
But what was good with him that I noticed, once I saw him, I went to his website. He's been paying his dues. It's not like he just was sitting in his bedroom and then all of a sudden he went on The Voice. He actually has a website and he does shows and writes me, so he had a life.
Yes.
That he was already cultivating in music.
He's been working his ass off.
Exactly. And that's, when you have the passion, that's what you do.
Yeah.
So good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him that he's getting this break, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I did a bunch of things, to kind of get to where I was going.
And what the weekly television show, how that was called The Tube?
Yes, it was called The Tube. Jules Holland, he has a show called Later with Jules Holland. I think you can still stream that or get episodes on some platform somewhere. But Jules and Paula Yates had this TV show that was in the north of England. It was broadcast every Friday from Newcastle.
Oh, nice.
And so you'd go up from London on the train, and at 5:00 it was on live TV. So they had, and it was always these great musicians and whoever the newest act was. But this person that I had hired for a manager, one of my first managers, or someone who was interested, I can't even remember how that worked, but he had a friend who knew how to get me, who heard that they could maybe get me on the show, and how they could was the Tube. If I recall, they introduced a thing where, like, one month they said, every week we want to feature an instrument. Like, one week it's going to be the harmonica, next Friday it's going to be the bass, next Friday it's going to be, the trumpet, and they wanted to have someone who would highlight that one particular instrument. And so that was me for bass. They said, my friend said, I can get you on this show. You can go on and play a bass solo or something. And I was like, well, I can't play bass. That's not the kind of bass player I am. I'm not, I can't really, and especially then, I was still, learning. I think maybe now I might think about attempting it. But
I think you can hold your own, Gail.
Well, maybe, but a bass solo is kind of like, who wants to hear bass solo all by itself? So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll play the bass and I'll sing, because that I can do. So I chose a song that I loved, a song I used to learn on the guitar when I was a kid, Stop On By, Bobby Womack's song.
Oh, wow.
That was done by Rufus and Chaka Khan, which was one of my favorite bands. I listened to Tony Maiden's guitar and Rufus for he was my mentor. I tried to learn a lot of those songs. I loved Rufus and Chaka Khan.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
So I decided to do the version like they did of Stop On By, but just with bass and voice, because it had a really cool bass part that worked. You could sing over it and still feel the essence of the entire song. And it was a learning experience for me too, because then I started learning the power of the bass and what you could do with it. And so it's kind of the beginning of my really learning and falling in love with and gaining respect for the bass was getting to be on that show. So they didn't expect me to sing. They thought I was going to come and play the bass. So then, being the show that the whole country tuned into on a Friday night for music, the record labels at the time always looked at that show for new talent, because if they saw someone. So that's how I got started with my solo career. They saw me singing, and the next day the phone was ringing off the hook.
Unbelievable. And then you signed with Warner, right?
I signed with Warner, yeah.
Wow.
And did my first album.
The corporate world.
The corporate world, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Unbelievable.
So that's how that happened. It was, again, right place, right time.
Yeah. And this
and
apparently...
I decided not... thankfully I didn't just do a bass solo because I think it would have been a different story.
Yeah. No, that was smart. It was just, wow, amazing, the stories. And this album also received, it was voted one of the top 50 albums of the year by London's magazine.
Q magazine. Yeah, it was. It was one of the top 50 best albums of the year. Now it got a lot of critical acclaim, and it didn't do great, like in terms of sales. Didn't do horrible, but I think they spent a lot of money on it that they never made back. And I'm actually trying to get the label to re-release that and my second album on Island, but it's kind of difficult these days.
Is it really? Yeah.
Maybe we'll figure it out. I mean, they have got nothing to lose. They might as well put it out now. It'll probably do better now than it did then.
Yeah, it might. It absolutely might, because you're way more well known by now, and people would love to hear that.
That's true. Yeah. It's an interesting record. Well, I'm going to keep trying. Don't worry.
Good. Good. I'm sure your fans would be happy about that. And then you released a second album.
Yeah. But and that was on Island Records. I got signed by Chris Blackwell.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have great rapport with record labels at that time, and it was okay. I didn't feel like I actually left Warner Brothers, and on Island, I guess in a way Chris Blackwell left me because he signed me, and then the label Island itself was sold or transferred to Polydor or something, and he then kind of stepped down and just kind of didn't stick up for me in a sense, because basically I was his signing, so the other people didn't really have anything to do with me, and then he kind of walked away from the label. So that was just kind of a bad timing on that sense. But it was okay, I didn't mind, because I had a lot. I was always doing other stuff with along with my solo stuff, so it didn't really bother me too much, because I kept busy and I got to work with really cool people. So I kind of I was happy to jump back and forth between both worlds, which is what I still do.
Yeah, it seems that way.
I don't feel precious about, or heartbroken over a label, not putting out a record or whatever. It doesn't stop me from doing what I do.
Right, you just move on to the next thing, and that's that.
Exactly.
So after London, you relocated here to the Hudson Valley or New York?
Yes, I came here. No, I came straight here to Woodstock for a while. I shared a place with my friend Sarah Lee, another great bass player from this area.
Please tell her I said hello. I know you guys are dear friends.
I will, yeah. I saw her today, actually. She dropped something off on my porch.
Aww.
So I came here, and I met Sarah in London. She had come over with the Indigo Girls. She was playing with Jerry Murata, was in the band, and James Carpentoni. And the Indigo Girls were playing, and I at the time, I was very, very good friends, and I'm still very good friends with Louise Goffin, who's the daughter of Carole King, the oldest daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Louise was living in London. She came about 2 years after I did, and we met on a Gang of Four project. Andy Gill, God rest his soul, who passed away, guitarist, he introduced us. He knew her, and he knew me. And he put us together on a record, and then we became friends, and we spent a lot of time writing stuff. We had a band together. We just kind of hung out a lot in London. She was one of my good friends there. And she knew Sarah Lee, but I had never met Sarah Lee, but I knew who she was. And one night, Louise called me up and said, "Hey, the Indigo Girls are playing at Town and Country." It was a venue in London. And she said, "My friend Sarah will be in town. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we went down and saw the Indigo Girls. It was the first time I'd seen them as well live. And then I met Sarah. And she's like, "I live in Woodstock," and da-da-da. We became friends. And I came over to visit because I was interested in coming back to New York, but I didn't want to be in New York City. And I didn't quite know how I could be close to New York City, but not in New York City, but I didn't know about this Woodstock community in the Hudson Valley and Kingston and all these places. And so I came to visit, and I loved it. I met John Ashton from Psychedelic Furs. I went to his wedding. I met Tony Levin for the first time. Like, all these musicians were here, and I was like, this is where I want to come back.
This is home, and you're close to the city anyway, so
perfect.
Yeah.
It couldn't be more perfect. I think it's just far enough away to be out of the city and close enough to get there when you need to work or do whatever you need to do.
Exactly.
It couldn't be a better spot. It's just to me, the Hudson Valley, this area is just the greatest spot you could pick in New York State.
Yeah, and maybe on the East Coast, quite honestly. I'm with you.
Agree.
I just think it's wonderful. I love to hear this story. You've probably told it 100 times, if not more. So you came back, you're here, and the start of your time and your relationship with David Bowie.
Yeah, I was still playing with Tears for Fears when I moved back here. I had just done a tour with them and an album, Raoul and the Kings of Spain. And then I came back. I was just starting my transition to move back to the States, like permanently, get my own place, all those things. And I was still going back and forth to the UK because I was working with Roland Orzabal from Tears for Fears on a solo project. We were writing songs together. He was producing me. We were going to do something, put something out. And in the middle of one of my trips to Bath, England, actually where Peter Gabriel's Real World is. He was neighbors with Roland, and there's a bunch of Van Morrison, all this. They lived in Bath, that area. It was recording studios down there. I recorded some of Corporate World in that area, in a studio down there.
Isn't that so small world?
I was at Roland's house. Yeah, I was just staying at Roland's house like for a few weeks, writing songs and, using the spare bedroom and getting up and just literally going in his studio every day and working on music. And one afternoon, his wife comes running over to the studio from the house and says, "David Bowie just called." They just had their second son, and he was still a little baby, and she said, I nearly dropped the baby. I'll never forget that. She was like pale. She was like, "David Bowie just called. I was in the kitchen, and I picked up the phone, and he's looking for Gail." And I was like, "What?" Out of nowhere, this phone call comes. It was in the May of 95.
Amazing.
And she said, "I've given him the number of the studio. He's going to call this number in 5 minutes." So we're all sitting there biting our nails, looking at the phone. And sure enough, it rings, and I go off to the other room. I take the call, and at first I thought it was a joke, of course, a friend of mine from London playing a joke. And then I realized, it wasn't. And now that I know the man, when he hires you or fires you, which I have huge respect for, because it's always hard for an artist to maybe let somebody go who's not doing a good job. He will call you and do that in person,
and not have his people do it. Yeah.
Not a musical director, not someone else. So I have huge respect for him for that, because it's not easy to do.
Absolutely.
But lucky for me, it was a call to hire me, not to fire me.
Exactly.
I never got the fired call. Thank God.
Oh, thank God. And the beautiful thing is, tell me how he noticed you, how he found out who Gail and Dorsey was.
Well, he had the man had a brain like no other person I've ever met. Maybe the closest to that kind of brilliance is an artist named Jane Siberry, who who I had the great pleasure of working with. But he remembered. He said he saw me on television with the Corporate World. I was doing promotion on all the British TV shows for my album, and also touring in Europe and everything for Corporate World. And he said he was in a hotel in London, and he was flipping channels, and I came on a music show.
Amazing.
Again, serendipity. I mean, my goodness. And he said, you sang a song, and then you went and talked to the host, sat on the couch or whatever, and then you went back and did another song. And he said, in my mind, I thought, wow, that woman is very interesting, and when I'm doing the right project, I'd love to work with her. This would have been 1989, maybe. He didn't call me till 1995. So 6 years later, whatever I sang or did, I must have made a good impression.
A lasting impression, yeah.
Well, he remembers things that he really likes, and part of his brilliance, I think, as an artist, is his ability to take the elements, to choose the right elements around him to create his vision. And that's what every artist does, but it's not always so great. It's hard. It's hard to say, did I choose the right drummer for that, or is this the right? It's kind of trial and error. But he can. It's like a chess player, and I'm terrible at chess, but I know that part of the people who are brilliant at it is that they can see the game ahead. They can already plan out the whole thing in their head and see a game from start to finish before they've even made the moves. And in a way, he had that kind of brain. So he could have he would have remembered I did XYZ, and now he's making this song or this tour or this band, and that is going to fit perfectly in that.
Amazing.
But it wouldn't have worked 5 years before or in something else. And so it's just, he was amazing like that.
Did he call you to tour, or did he call you to record?
He called me to tour.
Mm-hmm.
He called me to do the 9 Inch Nails tour.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was like a double bill, but we were first, believe it or not.
Really?
But it was like the seamless, yeah. He played first, and then there was this seamless movement in between Bowie's set and 9 Inch Nails. Mm-hmm. Like one member of 9 Inch Nails would come on our like third to last song. And then the next song, 2 more members of 9 Inch Nails would appear, and 2 of us would go away.
Ah.
Until suddenly by the last song, it was, I can't remember if it was Hurt. I can't remember what the transitional song was, when it was really stripped down. And then suddenly we were all gone. It was just Bowie and Trent. And then Bowie would sing with him and go off. And then it was the 9 Inch Nails. There was no intermission. It was beautifully choreographed.
I was going to say, that's really nice, because normally you have such a lag time between, and what a great idea that is to do.
It was, yeah, well, again, that was another one of his creative ideas.
Where was the first show that you played?
The first show, I think, was like in Connecticut or somewhere. I know we rehearsed in Massachusetts, I think in Amherst, at one of those auditoriums that's part of the university. Mm-hmm. If I vaguely remember, somewhere like that. And then the first show was kind of Sheds. It wasn't Sheds yet. It was September was the first show. Yeah, I think we still might have been doing a few things that were half outdoors. It was
so the
warm.
First time you met him in person was at rehearsal?
Was rehearsal, which he called me in May, and rehearsal started, I think, at the end of July or something like that, or July, August, something, because I think the first shows were September, October, end of September or something like that. So, yeah, that was the first time I met him. I'd seen him once before. He was at he came to see me sing, he wasn't seeing me sing with Charlie Watts, but he came to the Charlie Watts big band shows at Ronnie Scott's. And I asked him, I said, do you remember that I was the little girl that got off the bench and did 2 songs every night? And he said he did, but I don't know that he did. I think he didn't remember me then. I don't know.
Right. But he did remember you on TV, so that was...
He remembered me on TV,
yeah. And
I never officially met him.
You spent so many years and so many recordings. And what was it like to record with him in the studio?
Really fun. Mm-hmm. It was very fun. I would be very nervous, but he always put me at ease, and he, he very much believed in me more than I believed in myself. And I in retrospect, I wish I could again, because I always did, but I would love to thank him again for that, because he really always made me feel comfortable. I was nervous. It's David Bowie.
Yeah.
I'm not schooled. Everybody else seemed so much more brilliant than I thought I could ever be, but he saw things in me that he brought out in me through his music and through the way he put shows together. And it was just like I was in this incredible training ground. He was a great mentor who never made me feel bad, or, he was always, when I would say, oh, I don't think I can do that, he would look at me and go, yes, you can. Mm-hmm. Like he had no doubt of my ability to be able to sing under pressure. Like when he first came to me and said, we're going to do Under Pressure.
I was just going to go there.
Yeah, he said, we're going to do it like I did it with Annie Lennox, and I'll give you a copy of that and you can listen to it. And I said, well, how am I going to play the bass and do the Annie Lennox part? And he looked at me. No, I said, who's going to play the bass when I do I remember saying, who when I sing, because I just assumed I'd be at the mic with him like Annie Lennox. And he said, well, you're going to play the bass. And I was like, and sing that at the same time? And he looked at me and he said, I'll give you 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. What did you do for those 2 weeks? Locked yourself in a room?
I drilled, exactly. Every spare minute, I think I went to sleep with the bass in my hand. I just drilled it slowly, over and over for 2 weeks, because I knew in 2 weeks' time he wasn't going to forget.
Yeah.
And then, sure enough, 2 weeks' time, he was like, are you ready to try it in sound check? Mm-hmm. We were already into a tour.
Wow.
It wasn't like we did it prior. It was an idea he had while we were already on the road.
Oh, my.
And I was like, okay, let's try it, and then I got through it, and over the years, I see very different versions of videos and things. It's interesting to see the progression of it to the final version that is, to me, the best version I ever did, which was thankfully captured on the live tour, on the reality tour.
I think that's the one I'm playing later.
Yeah, by the time I got to that part, I'd done it hundreds of times, but it was interesting to see it on its training wheels. Yeah. But I managed to do it. I got through it.
You nailed it. You didn't just manage to do it. You nailed it.
Thank you.
I mean,
that.
Gail, I play that, and every time I play it, the hair on my arm goes up. I will never forget when you were in the studio here with me, I think maybe the last time or the first time, and we listened to it, and I just watched your face. And it was not long after he passed. And I think for you must have been such a surreal moment of... Yes.
It still is difficult to hear him sometime. And now I'm actually today, my voice is a little rough, but I've been recording some vocals here in my home studio. We're doing the Bowie celebration.
Yes. Yeah.
For his birthday. You mentioned that in the intro. And basically, of course, we're all having to do it remotely because of this strange year we're in. Mm-hmm. So the music for the song that I will be doing on that program, I have the music, and I'm going to do my vocal here, and then send the vocal in, and then we'll make a video of it, and it's all going to be streamed on his birthday. But
what song? Can you tell us what it is?
I'm keeping it a secret.
Oh, good. Okay.
Someone asked me because it's one that I've never. No one's ever. I've never done it, but it's a song that we did on that first tour, which we didn't do. I don't think ever again after that. So if people think about it, if Bowie fanatics can kind of go back and find an old set list or wherever, maybe they can figure out which one it is.
I'm sure there's a few people out there that can.
But it's a great song that I loved doing on that tour. Probably my favorite song when it would come up. Mm-hmm. And it's on that album. I'll give a hint. It's on the Outside album.
Okay. Awesome.
And it's also a song that's on another album that's different, and I won't say which album that is because it'll give it away.
That will give it away. Yeah.
But it's on another kind of obscure album. So it's
Are you playing bass
song.
And singing with
No,
this?
I'm only singing, and I'm doing a different version of it. So it's not like the song itself is recorded with a full band. I'm doing it just with Mike Garson on piano and a string quartet.
Oh, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
So it's a different version of this song, and it's a beautiful song, and it can work in so many ways because it's so beautifully, and it's kind of a sad song, but a beautiful song, and it's so well written, like most of David's music, that it's just a thrill to sing it, and a challenge to sing it, almost like the Peter Gabriel song. It's a challenge, but what a great challenge.
What a great challenge. Yeah. Let me just tell listeners while we're talking about this Bowie celebration is happening on January 8th at 6 p.m. Pacific time, and tickets are available for purchase at rollinglivestudios.com, Bowie/Bowie. And this live stream, I think, is good for 24 hours. And
that's correct. Yeah, we had permission. Mike Garson kind of put this whole thing together, who's Bowie's longtime piano player. And apparently obviously he got permission from the Bowie estate to do it, but they also said we want it to be a one-time, like a special event. So it's a 24 hours, you can stream it, and then it's coming down. So it will be special, and it's just in honor of his birthday, which is that date, and also 5 years since his passing, which I can't believe it's been 5 years. I think it's been 5 years.
Yeah. And you were in shock as the rest of the world when you heard that, yes?
I was indeed. Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Very much in shock. I had no idea. I hadn't, other than a few email communications, which, I hadn't been in touch with him. I hadn't seen him. I knew he was working on his play, on Lazarus, and doing various things, but I had no idea.
An artist till the end, for sure.
He was just getting things done, which is exactly what he did. Yeah, apparently he worked right to the very end. And he did some of his most brilliant work. I mean, what an exit.
Yeah.
If you really, that is...
Yeah. Black
you
Star.
can top that one. I'm sorry. I was blown away, it was a very emotional time. I was actually in in Massachusetts, again in Northampton when I got the news. I had just done a vocal workshop that I was taking with Rachel Price from Lake Street Dive.
Oh, yeah,
singer.
yeah. She's
terrific. One of my favorite vocalists ever. One of the greatest voices I've ever heard. But she was teaching a workshop that weekend at a friend of mine's kind of music camp for young girls. Mm-hmm. And I go along sometimes and just participate in things there at the IMA. It's June Millington from the band Fanny.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And June hosts a lot of great musical events at her space, and most notably her music camp for young girls in the summer, which is wonderful. Mm-hmm. And Rachel had volunteered to go and teach a workshop that weekend for the community. It was beautiful. So I said, yeah, I want to take it. She's a great singer. I went along and donated some food and hung out for the weekend. And then on that Monday, when I was waking up in the hotel to go home that night, I got the phone call that he had passed. It was just a shock. I remember driving back to Kingston that morning, just my cell phone going off the hook. I mean, from everybody called from every corner of the earth. Lenny and just everybody was calling me, going, "Oh my God, I'm sorry."
Right.
Yeah, it was just quite a shock.
Yeah.
I will never forget it. But
but the times you shared and you could see in the photos that are available online, Gail, you can see the love between you two and just the pure friendship and the pure respect he had for you. And
indeed, he was very kind to me. There's few times you can think of like one person that's really changed your life, like and just taken everything in a whole another sphere, Right. And he was that person for me. He like just the association with him has just been such a blessing. And I can't.
Well,
think
it changed your life, I think.
And I can't think of another human being other than like my family or whatever who really had been the most important human being in my life. Really, in so many ways, he was amazing.
Right.
And I'm grateful to him. I'm just so grateful to him. And I'm happy that I made him know that when he was alive.
Yeah.
I was never ever. I was always making sure he knew that I appreciated everything he had ever done for me.
And isn't that a lesson learned? That
and I would feel horrible if I didn't.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that I did, because I felt it. It was important for me that he knew, what an impact he'd have and still has on my life.
Yeah.
And I think I appreciate him so.
I don't think that will ever go away. I don't think.
No.
And now you've been with another long-term musician here, Lenny Kravitz.
With Lenny, I've been working with Lenny. I'm not sure what's going to happen when all this is over with him. Of course, we had a huge tour planned this year, and of course, everything fell apart in March, and so he's taking a hiatus certainly for this year, of course, and I think maybe he was saying most of next year too. So I'm not sure by 2022. None of us know really how we're going to get back into that world of certainly the level of concert touring that he does.
Yeah.
I know that people are still doing small gigs and that's possible, but for him, I don't know when that's going to take off again. Right. And now I'm going to start working on solo stuff because now is the time to do it. And I kind of not forced into it, but it's like it's giving me an opportunity to do something that I've actually been thinking about a lot. I'm not getting any younger. None of us are. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I still want to do some solo work. And
I was just going to go there with you.
Busy with Lenny.
Right.
Yeah, Lenny has kept me so busy because he works all year round. Even when we're not touring, we're doing corporates and other events. Mm-hmm. So that's kept me very, very busy. And now I have some space to really do, to work on some music. And I started working on some stuff this year and learning how to do my digital recording better. I took some courses and things, and I'm working on some new music.
And you are, right? Didn't you record up at Danny Bloom's a little track or something?
I did some stuff there that I never got finished, and that I'm going to get finished and get out next year for sure. And I'm also going to work on a Patreon page. I don't know if you've heard about this site called Patreon. Mm-hmm. I'm going to launch one at the very beginning of the year, so I'm getting all that finalized this month, along with some other projects that I promised I'd do. So I'm kind of busy this month.
Good.
And then I want to get that launched, and I'm going to do some really fun stuff that's going to be great exercise for me in terms of, like, I'm going to offer that I record something once a month and offer it to the Patreon subscribers. So that's going to keep me on my toes and keep me practiced and get me kind of, Louise, I did a great podcast actually with Louise Goffin this year, my friend.
I heard it.
She does a really good podcast. And, we were talking about songwriting, which is, she's just as great at it as her mother. And she was saying, she was asking me about my songwriting, and I said, I haven't done a lot of it lately because I've been so busy. I've been working on other stuff, and then projects come. I did stuff with the National, and done a lot of live work, which I always have done, which I love. So it's hard for me to turn it down.
Right.
But I love getting on stage. It's like there's nothing more fun. But she said, don't forget, though, it's just a muscle. It's like you going to the gym. You're weak at first, and then you start building those muscles back, and then they work again. It's only a muscle. Songwriting is like a muscle. So she made me think of it in that way, and I feel like when I start my Patreon, I'm going to get to really work that muscle again and get back up to speed, and also share something with my audience, which I'm really looking forward to doing, So I hope that a lot of people will tune in. I will announce it on my Facebook and on Instagram and on Twitter. I will make sure that people know when it's available, but it's going to be very soon. So
excellent.
This is only the second place I'm planting that seed. I had a podcast I did yesterday, and that's coming out soon, and I mentioned it then, but I'm going to start to get people excited about it because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, that sounds
terrific. I'm going to have a bass stream once a month. We're going to have an interactive bass thing. It's going to be fun.
Oh, sounds very exciting. Very exciting. Well, thank you for sharing it with us. I know your fans are really going to be looking forward to it, and I love the way people are getting creative now in these times, musicians and artists.
It's
and
good.
It really is. It's really warming to see. I also want to talk about these songs that you sent me from Donnie McCaslin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Donnie, well, he was a saxophone player on the Black Star album, on Bowie's last album. And we've actually been doing some stuff together on his solo stuff. I did the tracks that I sent you. I did a song on his album called Eye of the Beholder, which he asked me to sing. The first time we kind of met was on a thing, another Bowie celebration type thing that we used to do live at the Cutting Room around his birthday. We did it last year, and they did it the year before. It's a different group of Bowie alumni, more the latter than the later.
Yep.
I mean, like the more recent, Donnie, some people from the Black Star album, Mark Platty, myself, some of the old guard, but some of the new guard, people who worked on Lazarus, his play, Michael T. Hall or C. Hall, I always forget which initial, the actor who was in Lazarus, who was Dexter, the actor that plays Dexter.
Okay,
People know that show. But anyway, he was an actor on Bowie's play, and he sang. And anyway, we used to do this thing at the Cutting Room live on his birthday, which is kind of why we're doing the stream this year, because we can't do that.
Right.
But that's when I first met Donnie and connected with him and sang some stuff. And then he asked me to come and sing on one of his albums. So I did. And then we did a Bowie thing in Philly one year on his birthday, and I went and sang with his band. And then last year, we just did another one-off song, and we shot a video for it, for the song Head of Mine, which you can see on Donnie's website. We did a video for it and just put it out as a single, and it was a really great song. I helped co-write some of the lyrics on it. And we might be doing something, live again, not next year, but maybe in 2022 or whenever things kick off. We want to work together some more. I really enjoy his stuff. It's kind of jazz, but it's, the stuff that I've done with him is kind of a hybrid. It's really, really beautiful.
Right.
So I like the way he writes tunes, and so that's
I love how diversified you are in musical style and taste.
I love it all.
Yeah.
And the National, I got to work with the National, which is an incredible band, and the stuff I did with them, I'm so proud of. To me, it was some of the most creative stuff I've worked on since I worked with Bowie.
Wow.
They really impressed me. They're great. They're really dedicated artists, and they're great artists, and they're great writers. I even got to sing with the lead singer's solo album, Matt Berninger.
Yeah.
Just released a solo album, which I'm singing with him on that. Just great stuff.
Great stuff.
Yeah,
well, those are the tracks.
I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky.
You are, and they're so lucky too
so
to
blessed.
have you work with them and bring your experience to the table too.
Oh,
I'm going to play a
appreciate
few
that,
of these tracks that you just talked about, and I just always still love "I Used to Be." So it's worn out. I
Thank
look
you.
at it, Gail. The cover is
They'll
off
be-
of it. It's broken. The CD's good. It's in great shape, and I absolutely love this. I think I told you one time I treasure this as much as I do Tapestry by Carole King.
Oh, that is a huge compliment. Well, I'm going to get a new one for you soon, Rita. I know I've been saying that for way too long, and everybody is probably tired of me. They're like, yeah, broken record. I'm the boy who cried wolf, right? But I promise, next year there's going to be some products, some new songs, and I'm really looking forward to getting them done and getting them out.
And we're looking forward to it too. Gail, you have a website, GailAndDorsey.com. You are also, you got a Facebook page, a public one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Instagram, and you got a bunch of followers.
On Facebook. Yeah, I got great followers that come. Instagram, wow, it takes so hardly even go on Instagram much. Not because I don't like it, but I actually just, I forget sometimes. There's so many things between checking emails and looking at Facebook and Instagram and trying to actually work and concentrate on music and do some writing and take care of your body and cook some food. And, there's a lot of things to do. So, Instagram is not always high on my list.
Yeah.
But I have to say, if there are Instagram followers that are listening, thank you so much. I appreciate that you hang in and that you're interested and that you follow, because there will be more, correspondence and feedback and information coming. But I really appreciate that people keep, I don't know if it's word of mouth, but they keep coming, and following me on all of these platforms, and I'm really grateful. I appreciate it.
You are loved. You are loved. Have you considered or are considering ever writing a book?
Yeah, I do think about it,
Mm-hmm.
I have considered. My manager keeps saying I should.
Mm-hmm.
I've been really bad with my journaling, funny enough, in the last few years. I don't know why. I just kind of slipped off a little bit. So I have to try and start jotting down some memories again. But I do have, some things from the past that would be very interesting in stories. Stories from the past. I think about it,
Yeah.
I want to do some more music first,
Right.
There's a lot of music I got to get out of me,
Yeah.
before it's too late.
Oh, the lucky world that we get to have your music come to us. So that's a great thing. You know what? I watched that. I listened to the podcast you had just mentioned there with your friend. One thing I did not know about you: you're a collector of typewriters.
Yes.
No idea.
Yeah, I love them. I mean, from my days of writing screenplays as a kid and just there was a point where, I wanted to be a writer. I mean, I still would like to be, but I feel like I can't call myself that yet because I don't write enough. But maybe one day I'll remedy that. But I used to write a lot, and I did a lot of writing on my typewriter. And I still use them. I write notes. I keep one out and, jot down some lyric ideas, and I just kind of put all the paper in a box, and it's just nice to have a tactile thing. I'm so tired of looking at a screen.
Yes, the blue screen and
and I spend a lot of time doing that with music now because you're recording, on the screen. Everything is digital, and everything's on the plugins and things on the screen, and it's kind of gets to you after a while.
Yeah.
So, it's a relief to sit down either with pen and paper or at a typewriter, which is such a beautiful machine.
Mm-hmm. And the sound of it. I love the
varieties
sound.
And the sound, and they're heavy, and the clink of the bell, and the press of the key, the smell. There's a smell of the oil of the thing, when all of mine are refurbished, so they're in mint condition, I have them from the earliest, like 1937 to the 70s.
Wow. Oh,
I
had no idea.
Machines.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
They are. I had no idea about that. Beautiful. So, Gail, it's been quite a year, and
yes.
It's been quite a year, and it brings out. We've had a lot of loss this year, just in people and all of that, and now being the end of the year. How are you feeling for 2021? Hopeful?
I'm concerned, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful. You have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I really I'm grateful that we're maybe going to move the country in a slightly more friendly direction.
Yes.
because it's just been a little too dark.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like I don't want to get political because, you know, it's not really about, it's more about energy than anything. It's not even a person, you know, who does what or who doesn't. But the energy has to change, you know. Lenny's last album was Raise Vibration, you know, and it's like, that's true. We need to raise the vibration of things to a positive one. So I'm hopeful that could maybe happen, you know, I hope so. Right. Because that's where we need to start to fix everything else. You know, it's just like to get the energy feeling nicer, you know, more tolerant and sweet and kind.
Yeah.
And that's hard. Human beings are tough.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. As another thing that Lenny says, let love rule, right?
Let love rule, absolutely. And that's what we have to do. You know, I mean, I don't know what's coming. I'm kind of trying to just stay focused on positive things in my space, because in my own world, that's where it has to start for everybody.
Absolutely.
Start in their own world, cultivating that positive energy or raised vibration or whatever you want to call it in your own space, because that's how it starts. You know, it's not outside of us to look for someone else to do it for you. It's for us to do individually. So I'm hopeful in myself that I see positive things I want to do, and I want to just stay focused on that. I want to stay focused on the new songs I'm writing and stay focused on being involved in things that are helpful to people and things like that. So, you know, I really just don't know how it's going to go.
Right.
So this year was a shock, I have to admit.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I was in shock or trauma for a while, and it kind of creeps on you like shock, because you're not sure that you're in shock at first, and you go, you know what, I think I'm like, wow, you know, I think I just took a blow that I didn't realize, you know.
Right.
Kind of like when you have a little bang in the car and you think, oh, wow, that was crazy. Oh, but I'm all right. And then the next day, you feel pretty awful.
Yeah, you have aches and pains. And
you have an ache that you thought you got through it, but you didn't quite. So it's been a tough year. I have to admit. I'm just thinking about things and thinking about surviving, and especially with music, because I feel like musicians of everything really got the short straw.
Yeah, they did.
And I don't. And people have talked about sports and hair salons and like all these things they need to have happening. But what about music?
Right.
What about venues and people who have lived their whole life making a living by going up on that stage, myself included?
Right.
So and we kind of, in terms of like stimulus check or on a thing, we slip through the cracks in all that stuff too. Yep. Like it's not cut and dry. Like our jobs are kind of not, you know, like a normal job.
Right.
So sometimes we don't apply for the things that even give us some relief or help in terms of unemployment or government, whatever things they offer or don't offer. So it's been a weird year, and I feel like music really, really took a kick up the butt.
Yeah.
Really badly.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. The arts in general, right? Theater.
The arts in general.
Yeah.
Theater's the same. Anybody who makes that living going up on that stage, you know, and now a lot of venues are closing or they're begging for help, and it's like we can't let that fall.
No.
We're worried about a baseball game, for
right.
God's sakes. Those people have millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, they're going to be okay for a few years.
They're going to be fine,
right?
But musicians often, you know, living day by, they're scraping by, or they're not living. They're certainly not living like baseball players and basketball players. Most of them,
right.
You know, most of the people who are brave enough and who also just have that calling and drive to want to make a living in music. We work our butts off.
Yeah, you
do that.
Mm-hmm.
We work very, very hard to make a living, like you know, the person who has that giant paycheck or a corporate job or something that, you know, is guaranteed. So I feel like we really got a hard knock this year for music and theater and that kind of thing, you know. And I hope that it starts to turn around with whatever it takes, whether it's the vaccine or whatever. I hope that it starts to turn around next year.
Yeah, we all do.
And by 2022, that it really has gotten back to some kind of normalcy or just ability to offer that to people again and to be able to do what we do,
Right.
What musicians do. We train as hard as anybody else, as a doctor or anybody else.
Sure
we
you
put
do.
in our hours and time.
Yeah.
So, it's just as relevant. And I hope that people will start to understand that.
Yeah. Amen. Amen, Gail. Amen. In the meantime, you've got exciting projects on your horizon.
Indeed.
With
and
Patreon and music coming out. And I just thank you so much for your time here today. I want to play a few of the tracks that you and I discussed. Also, if anyone tuned in halfway through, this is being recorded. It will be up as a podcast tonight on all your streaming platforms, as well as up on YouTube as well. So, Gail, always a pleasure. I can't wait to the day where I can hug you again. And
I know, right?
Yeah.
And I can come to the radio station, which is always exciting for me, because then I feel like I'm, there I go to my giddy kid again. I'm on the radio.
Yeah. And it's just, I miss seeing the person in the chair across from me, because that one-on-one, and I'm blessed that, for a while when this first started, I took a few weeks off because it was just so sad. I didn't know what to do. And then I said to myself, get up and do this, because people need music and people need entertainment.
Absolutely.
So
God bless you for that, Rita.
And thank
stay
you.
Safe and stay well. And
yeah, you too. And we look forward to hearing more music. And Gail, you're the best. Always an honor talking with you.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you. You made my day. It feels like Christmas already. Thank you.
Well, have a wonderful Christmas, you and your daughter and all your loved ones.
Thank you.
I wish you the best.
I wish that to you
God
too.
Bless you.
Yeah, bless you too, Gail. Thank you so much. Take care.
Okay, Rita.
All right.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Ms. Gail Ann Dorsey. Always a good day when one gets to speak with her. Let's play some of the music that she just talked about, a collaboration. I'm going to play a couple of tracks. Let's take a listen right here, right now. 91.3 WVKR, Independent Radio, Poughkeepsie, New York.
answer is an answer to a question, just in silence, stepping out for the evening, going out for a ride. Around, 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 all around this small town, I know my way. Around, around, turning silence into sound, for living, for giving, stepping out into the evening. Stepping out into the evening. Stepping out into the evening.
91.3 WVKR, Ms. Gail and Dorsey, a part of the Donnie McCaslin new release, the song called Head of Mine. Want to play one more track by Gail and Dorsey that she collaborated with on the National album. Let's take a listen to that right here, right now.
I'm your angel when it rains, dear. Heaven picks the place. I'm a child in that way, dear. Please do it again. Hey, Rosie, I think I know just what the feeling is. I was hoping you wouldn't see me like this. I hate to fall before your feet again.